planet. There's something subversive about water. Could I have a volunteer? I need a volunteer to pour some water for us. Come on, somebody. You can be the pourer. Thanks. Okay, and somebody else can hold the bowl. You can pour it slowly. Come on, Tom. Okay. And then we need a third person. We need a third person. Tom's coming. We need a third person to try to grab the water. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So you're going to slowly pour while I'm talking. Okay. So there's something subversive about water. It refuses to be owned. Try and hold it. Can you hold it? It slips through your fingers. See it slipping? Try to contain it. If it finds a way out. Try to build walls between it. It just laughs. It's seeping, it's flowing, it's connecting. It's unstoppable. I know, it's exciting. What you tried to keep separate, it overcomes. I think this is why dictators hate water. Justice flows like a mighty stream. It's an old story. That's why the prophets loved water, the river. Thank you. You can put the water down. I'll call you back later for more. Thank you. So Yom Kippur ended on Thursday. And the ideal rituals for Yom Kippur include fasting, 25 hours at an ideal without food, and as little water as possible. Think about that. And while fasting, the question arises, what have we broken? How do we repair? 25 hours. How does that change you? And right in the middle of that holy hunger, Isaiah, the prophet, shows up with the most uncomfortable sermon ever preached. Is this the fast I choose? God asks. To bow your head like a bulrush? No. The fast God wants is to loose the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free, to share your bread with the hungry. It's not a metaphor, it's a menu. Isaiah is giving us the actual ingredients. Justice, not performance. Liberation, not ritual. Bread in empty bellies, not wafers on comfortable tongues. Notice what Isaiah doesn't say. It doesn't say, pray about the hungry, pray about the ones who have just been shot and killed in the latest mass shooting, or the people in Gaza. Isaiah says, feed them, liberate them, care about them. Isaiah doesn't say, have compassion for the oppressed, those imprisoned. It says, free those unjustly imprisoned. Free them. The fast God chooses, measures, and asks us, how many more people have more water, more bread, more freedom? Because you showed up. And so in the midst of these ideals, there's Paul writing to his little dysfunctional faith community in Corinth. And Corinth is a very diverse city. It's a port city. And there's extreme wealth stratification in Corinth. And so what happens at the potlucks? The rich people bring all these gourmet food spreads, and the poor members went hungry, sitting at that very same table. And Paul is basically saying, you can't claim to share the Messiah's body, one body, while maintaining these class divisions. One bread, one body, There is no VIP section. Does it sound familiar? Here we are, some of us living up in the Oakland Hills. There's clean water in our taps. 5 miles away, around International Boulevard, families are drinking from pipes that the city hasn't bothered to fix. Corinth isn't ancient history. It's here, it's now, it's us. So after worship, Nancy's leading a conversation about organizing, listening to one another about our concerns in urgent times. We await ICE raids. We've seen them coming to other cities, Portland, Chicago. There's Medicaid cuts and SNAP cut benefits. There's attacks on trans healthcare. There's voter suppression. Some of you I know are probably thinking, can't we just have church without politics for once? Sure, right after we get Isaiah and Paul and Jesus to stop talking about it, being so political. The bonds of injustice, they have Oakland addresses. White supremacy, the poisoning of West Oakland's water, air, soil, especially near the port. Nationalism, speaking a dialect of Guatemalan mom, speaking mothers and fathers and children as illegal. Transphobia, making our trans neighbors unsafe. Ableism, the BART stations where the elevators aren't working. And then back in 17, and then I worry about this happening in a number of weeks, ICE teams threatening restaurants, businesses, especially around International Boulevard. Paul sets forth this ideal of one body. But then and now, we're so segregated. We're segregated here by race and wealth, the hills and the flatlands. By class, $4,000 apartments here in Oakland, not unusual, next to tent encampments. And nationally, nationality is another theme where your papers determine whether or not you can call the police. And if Paul's saying, if our communion, if our table, our time together, our table fellowship, following in the ways of this crucified Messiah, doesn't change who gets clean water, who gets enough bread in their bellies, who gets to exist safely, then that's just religious theater. So in her Yom Kippur sermon, Rabbi Sharon Brous of Icar, it's one of the largest progressive synagogues in the country, said, we're living in an age of rage. I think she's right. What's unfolding is definitely outrageous. And so I know for some of us, myself included, sometimes rage feels productive. I'm not giving up, I'm fighting back. But here's what she says. We cannot rage, we cannot scream our way through a crisis. And she adds, rage, while powerful, is ultimately self-congratulatory. It does nothing to heal our broken world. And it hits me. It indicts me because I see the ways in which my own heart has started to harden into indifference because it's too painful to feel that much. I think there's only so much rage a person can harbor without nurturing something cold and hard and still in the place where there used to be a warm, living heart, like children, like who we are, that we're so far from ourselves. We're so afraid and we're so hurt. We're so angry. So what's the alternative? I think Paul is pointing toward it, and just 3 chapters later in Corinthians, he speaks of love. I can preach sermons that, move mountains, but if I have no love, I'm an empty, clanging bell. Love is what transforms us. Awakening compassion through love, through that connection back to the water, remembering our interconnection. And so Rabbi Brous shared the story, reminds me of the king of our time. It's a timeless story. King David then, we can think of the kings now. King David and the prophet Nathan. David has done terrible things. David's a tyrant. David's being a dictator. Abuse of power, exploitation, murder. Including, he wants Bathsheba, and he sends her beloved husband, who is so faithful and loyal to the front line, to be executed. He's not accountable to anyone. He's above the law. And Nathan could have just shouted and pointed, shame on you, rape, murder, but he doesn't. He tells the story to David about a rich man stealing a poor man's one single beloved little lamb. And David, who remembers his childhood, who used to be a shepherd, who once knew what it meant to love the vulnerable creatures, David's heart breaks hearing this story, breaks for that poor man. And then Nathan looks right in his eyes and says, you are that man. That man is you. You cannot shame someone into compassion. We cannot be shamed into compassion. It must be awakened within us. We have to see differently through the eyes of compassion. We have to help others see differently through our own compassion. What love does, it changes everything. When we see one another through the eyes of love, it changes not only how we see them, but how others see themselves. When we listen through the eyes of love, we hear what rage and hatred can drown out. Think about it. When someone goes to St. Mary's, as we'll go in a couple of weeks to eat a meal, they're not being watched like a problem, to be guarded, monitored, solved. At its best, they are being seen, each individual, as a neighbor, as someone worthy of a good meal, a real conversation, genuine presence. When immigration allies supporting those who are at risk of detention show up at detention centers, they're not just protesting. They're seeing detained neighbors as fully human. There's something about the power of getting to know each other's stories, like we have back in 2017, and like we'll have next month, those of us who go to the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity's third fundraiser, testimonies from people at risk of deportation, from including Palestinians, including people from Central and South America, people who have been in this country for decades, paying taxes, families with children. When groups fighting for criminal justice, for the seriously mentally ill, or for those unjustly imprisoned just because they can't afford bail, they're seeing something more than the label criminal. They're listening past the narrative of punishment. They're seeing this unique person, hearing their story. This is how love starts to transform us, and it's terrifying to be changed because we want to protect ourselves, right? But then we protect ourselves from ourselves, and we lose ourselves in the process. And we believe the illusion that we're all so separate. So the truth is, I don't have this figured out. I anticipate the ICE raids coming, Medicaid, being stripped, SNAP benefits. And I imagine the lines of people who are desperate. We think the soup kitchens are full now. And I feel small. I write sermons about justice. And then I drive past tent encampments on the way home. And I don't stop. I try to protect my heart. But then I remember, I think we all do. I preach one body, and I still don't know all of my new neighbors. So I'm not here as someone who's got it all together. I'm someone who's trying and failing and trying again, like all of us. And at the same time, I see so much in each one of us. Catherine talked about preparing, serving, sharing a meal. It's not just any meal. Catherine buys the freshest, healthy ingredients. It's made from scratch. And we don't just prepare and serve. We sit down and we hear each other's stories. We listen, and something changes. Or the ongoing work of reparations that this faith community is committed to. Listening, which includes and is fueled by listening to the stories of centuries, of the pain we'd rather not hear about what we've done in this country to African Americans and to Indigenous people. And the same thing with being a sanctuary congregation, which we are. Seeing our undocumented neighbors everywhere. Sometimes it's the people who care for our gardens or clean our house, the people we drive by when we're getting our car washed. People that we need to just take a moment and stop and see and imagine if it were us. Listening to voices that the systems want to silence. And I think about the work of this congregation in climate justice. You know, as long as I've been here and before, there's so much passion about advocating for those who are most vulnerable to the deadly impact of pollution in the waters, in the air, the soil, the food, the planet, creation itself, our home. And I think back about writing letters, you know, the last couple of elections, groups of people writing letters targeted at swing states and key districts, writing letters knowing it won't change everything, but writing the letters anyway. Why? Because every vote matters, every person matters. Those serving meals, knowing they can't end hunger, showing up anyway. Why? Because this person matters. This person right in front of me matters. So the truth is, none of us is doing enough, because there is no enough when the need is infinite. So what I'm learning for myself to keep my own serenity is we do what we can as a faith community, as individuals. And we forgive ourselves for what we can't. We can choose tenderness over rage as our ideal, again and again, moment to moment. We can practice seeing and listening through love's eyes and ears, as a spiritual practice, as a way of being. And we can stay human. I think about AI and the ways it's dehumanizing us in so many ways. We can stay human in an increasingly inhuman world. Harden not your hearts, Jesus says again and again. Fear not. Return back to who you are created to be. And so then we end with this, the rivers of the book of Revelation, the river of life. The river of the water of life, bright as crystal. Think of that. Visualize it. Pristine. And then let everyone who is thirsty come. Just like nature, it's indiscriminate. Shakespeare said it well. The quality of mercy is unrestrained. It droppeth from the heavens like the gentle rain. It just pours out. Everyone, no prerequisites. Just, are you thirsty? Come. So ideally, it's what we aim for. And knowing we're always going to miss the mark. It's what we strive for and support each other in. Later today, this morning, we'll pour water, acknowledging our interdependence. We'll break bread like Christ's body, which multiplies, not divides. There's more than enough. There's abundance. Some of us will be staying for Nancy's meeting. Some of us will be too tired and going home, and that's okay, because some of us are going later on to Arlington, Kensington for a benefit fundraiser for reparations. Some of us here are just trying to keep our heads above water, and that's important. So please don't think leaving today, you're commissioned to try to change the world by next Sunday. Leave thinking, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to practice one way of being. And that will be enough. And so, back to the power of these religious rituals and Isaiah's message of how they become full, living water, bread of life. You're invited to come to this table, not because you're worthy, because nobody is. Come because you're thirsty, tired, trying to be human. And the table makes one demand: show up with love. Show up honestly, transparently with your doubt, your exhaustion. Show up ready to see the person that's standing right next to you, in front of you. Go forth ready to see the person you're walking past down the street. Show up ready to listen to stories of others with compassion, even when it's uncomfortable. Dare to show up with tenderness, even when rage feels easier. And show up together, because it's overwhelming to feel alone. We're stronger together. The water is already flowing. The bread is already broken. And we're stumbling forward again and again, striving toward that home. Because love transforms everything. Amen. And so now we'll join in the sermon response in the Black New Century hymnal number 332, verses 1 and 3.